I raised him as a man who would take care of his family. I didn't want anyone to always be alone like me. But today, I saw how I shifted many of his responsibilities onto myself, leaving him time for cheating. That was the moment I stopped being just his mother. Something inside me changed. Quietly but completely. I always believed that at 65, you earn some peace, a little stillness, a routine. I thought I had built that, my little house, my garden, my evening tea. I thought I had raised a man I could be proud of, a kind man, a loyal one, a good father. But on that night, everything I believed about my son began to unravel. And it started with one short message. It came from Marina, my neighbor, someone I've trusted for decades. We raised our children on the same street, shared recipes, swapped holiday gifts. She doesn't speak unless she's certain. Elena, her message read, I saw David getting out of a car near the Rose Bay Hotel. He wasn't alone. I'm sorry, but it wasn't Anna. I stared at the screen. My fingers went still. Not Anna. I read it again. My stomach twisted. I told myself it was a mistake. It had to be. Maybe it was a colleague, a friend. Maybe Marina was wrong. But a part of me, the quiet part I've ignored for years, knew she wasn't. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I kept seeing David's face. Not the man he is now, but the boy I raised. The one who used to cry when his toy broke. The one who brought me dandelions in his little fists. And then I remembered all the little cracks that I had ignored. The phone calls he stopped making. The family dinners he skipped. The way he rolled his eyes when Anna asked him to help with the kids. Last month, he had snapped at his daughter for asking a question during a movie. She looked so small when he told her to stop talking all the time. I watched her go quiet. I remember thinking, he didn't used to be like this. 2 weeks ago, Anna called me. Her voice was strained. He's been working late. I don't want to jump to conclusions, but something's off. I had told her to give it time. I wish I hadn't. The next morning, I didn't call a detective. I didn't want to hear about it from someone else. I had to see it for myself. I had to know. I dressed in dark clothes. I didn't want to be seen. I parked across the street from the Rose Bay Hotel in the corner of a small cafe. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Just after 2 o'clock, a silver car pulled up. It was his. I would have known that car anywhere. I leaned forward. David stepped out. My son, my only child. He looked calm, casual. He wasn't rushing. He wasn't hiding. And then she stepped out. Young, tall, her hair perfect. She laughed at something he said. He touched her back as they walked toward the hotel doors. I froze. My chest tightened. He looked happy. That was what hit hardest. He looked genuinely happy, carefree, like nothing was wrong. The woman beside him leaned into him as they walked, and he didn't pull away. I sat back in my chair. I couldn't breathe. He had held Anna's hand like that once. He used to open doors for her. He used to bring flowers, and now he was doing it all over again with someone else. I stayed in that cafe for a long time. The waitress asked if I wanted a refill. I didn't answer. I thought about every little thing that should have warned me. The way he had stopped showing up for Sunday lunches. The way he never answered Anna's calls in front of me. The way he brushed off his children when they were excited to show him something. I remembered last Christmas. Anna had baked his favorite dessert. He said, "Thank you," but barely touched it. He spent most of the evening on his phone. His son had begged him to help build a toy. David said, "Not now, buddy. Maybe later." Later never came. And I remembered all the things I did for him. Things I never questioned. The rent I covered when he lost his job. The groceries I bought when they had their first child. The nights I stayed with the kids so he and Anna could have a date night. The monthly transfers I still made to his account just in case. He always said, "Thanks, Mom," in that tired voice. Never looking up. Never calling later to ask how I was doing. He hadn't called in 2 weeks. I had sent a message asking how everyone was. He sent back a thumbs up. That hurt more than I admitted. The night I saw him at that hotel, I went home and made dinner. Not because I was hungry, but because I didn't know what else to do. I chopped vegetables like I had every night for decades. Carrots, onions, potatoes. I stirred soup that I wouldn't eat. Then I sat in the dark kitchen and stared at the old photo of David as a boy. The one with his gap-toothed smile and scraped knees. I missed him. Not the man I saw at that hotel. The boy who used to fall asleep in my lap. The boy who said, "You're the best mom in the world." I didn't cry. I just sat there numb. And then something changed. I thought about Anna. How she had smiled through so much. How she never complained. How she always defended David even when he barely acknowledged her efforts. I thought about how she helped me hang curtains last year when I couldn't manage the ladder. How she remembered my favorite tea. How she brought the children over every week, even when David said he was too busy. And I thought about the children, their joy when they saw me, their drawings stuck to my fridge, their hugs. They deserved better. So did Anna. I wasn't just watching my son make a mistake. I was watching him abandon his family, his responsibilities, his promises. I sat down at my desk the next morning. I opened my notebook, not to journal, not to process, but to plan. I listed everything he depended on me for. Monthly support canceled. Emergency account locked. Deed to the house transferring to the grandchildren. While rewriting it, he would not leave that family and take my support with him. If he wanted to walk away, he would do it without my help. I wasn't acting out of anger. I was acting out of love for the people he was willing to leave behind. And for the first time in a long time, I felt clear. He had changed. But I hadn't. I still knew right from wrong. And I was going to protect what mattered whether he understood that or not. When I was young, I believed pain had a shape, that it came in the form of tears or arguments or slammed doors. But what I felt that day didn't have a shape. It was formless. It filled every part of me without a sound. I didn't return to the hotel the next day. I didn't have to. One time was enough. Enough to undo years of memories. Enough to rewrite the story I had told myself about my son. Instead, I walked. I walked for hours past the grocery store where I once took David to pick out birthday cakes. Past the playground where he first learned to climb the slide. I walked by the school where I used to wait in the car until his class let out, where he'd run to me with stories about his day, breathless with excitement. That boy is gone. And in his place is a man I don't recognize. When I got home, I sat down with the photographs on the wall and asked myself the hardest question I've ever had to ask. Was I blind, or did he change? Because now that I was really looking, I saw it everywhere. His tone, cold, short, flat. He used to call just to check in. Now it was only when he needed something. And even then he spoke like it was an obligation. I used to treasure those calls. Now I dreaded them. When Anna asked him to pick up milk last week, he said, "I'm not your errand boy." I had been there. I had laughed it off at the time, trying to ease the tension. But Anna had gone quiet. She did that a lot lately. I remembered another moment just 3 weeks ago when his daughter proudly showed him a drawing. He didn't look, just said, "Put it on the table." She smiled anyway, but I saw the way her little shoulders dropped. That small gesture, that moment, sat with me like a stone in my chest. How many of those moments had I watched and said nothing? I used to make excuses for him. He's tired. He's stressed. Work must be hard. But I wasn't making excuses anymore. The more I thought, the more I realized how long this had been building. His visits grew shorter. He stopped calling unless he needed something. When I had the flu last year, Anna came and made soup, sat with me while I shivered under the covers. David sent a text. "Hope you're better soon." I felt ashamed for how happy that text made me. One line, that's all I got. And then there were the children. Sweet, innocent children who deserved a father who noticed them, who saw them, who wanted to be around them. But David. David was always too tired, too distracted, too busy. I remembered when his son broke a plate trying to help set the table. David yelled, "You're so careless." The boy was only 6. His hands had been shaking. He looked at me like he was hoping I'd say something. I didn't. That's what hurts the most now. All the times I didn't say something. All the times I stood by while Anna carried the weight of their home. All the times I sat in silence thinking that love meant support. Even when support looked like silence in the face of neglect, David had grown used to being the center. The one things were arranged around. And I helped build that pedestal. Every month the deposit went into his account like clockwork. Not because he asked, but because I knew he expected it. And I let him. I remembered the time he called me, furious that a bill had bounced. He didn't ask what happened. He demanded, "Did you forget the transfer?" No, hello, no concern, just entitlement. And then I remembered how different he had become with Anna. The little ways he undermined her, the way he made decisions without asking. When she wanted to repaint the living room, he said, "What for? It's fine." When she suggested a weekend trip for the kids, he rolled his eyes. "You know, we can't afford that." But I knew the truth. They could afford it. I was paying their rent. I was paying for groceries, insurance, even the kids' school shoes. I kept them afloat. And David used that security to act as if it all came from him. Anna never asked me for help directly. She was careful, grateful. She sent thank you notes. She baked me cookies. She asked how I was. Even when I knew she was tired, she still smiled. Once, when I gave her money for the children's winter coats, she cried. Not because of the money, but because she said she felt seen. She whispered, "I just want them to feel warm." And David texted, "Got it. Thanks." That's when I started listing it all in my notebook. Not the money, but the moments, the patterns. When Anna was sick, David left her with both kids and said he had plans. When the baby had a fever, it was Anna who stayed up. David went to bed with headphones in. When Anna got a job offer, he discouraged her. "Who will take care of everything if you're working too?" Control. It was all control. And I hadn't seen it. Or maybe I had. Maybe I just didn't want to admit it. He was my son. But that night at the hotel, when he touched that woman's back with familiarity, it was like a mirror shattered. I wasn't looking at my son anymore. I was looking at a man who had abandoned everything I tried to teach him: kindness, loyalty, gratitude. I sat on the floor with the old photo albums. I stared at a picture of David holding his firstborn. His face was so full of wonder. I wanted to rip the page out, but I didn't. I closed the book instead. I made a decision. I would not let this continue. I couldn't force him to be faithful. I couldn't stop him from making his choices, but I could stop protecting him from the consequences. From now on, the money would go to Anna directly. The house, I was transferring ownership into the names of the grandchildren. They would have a roof no matter what. My lawyer asked if I was sure. I said yes. I had never been more sure. I told him not to inform David. Let him find out on his own. And in that silence, I found strength. The kind of strength that doesn't need to be loud. The kind that doesn't ask for thanks. The kind that has waited long enough. He came out of the hotel like he had nothing to hide. The air was crisp, sharp, with winter coming on. I stood across the street behind a bus stop sign, wrapped in a scarf that hid most of my face. I had no idea what I would say to him. I just knew I had to be there. I had to look him in the eye. David laughed as he pushed open the door for her. She was smiling big, bright, unaware. Her coat was new designer. I recognized the brand. He never bought Anna anything like that. When she asked once about a pair of boots for the snow, he said, "Use last year's. They're still good." My heart pounded, not from fear, but from something colder. The kind of numb fury that builds when you've kept quiet too long. They didn't notice me. They were too wrapped up in each other. I crossed the street when they started toward his car. I walked with purpose, my steps slow, deliberate. When I stepped in front of him, he blinked. "Mom." The woman beside him froze, her arms still hooked in his. He stepped back like I had appeared from nowhere. "What are you doing here?" My voice was calm. Too calm. "I should ask you the same." He glanced at the woman who looked uncomfortable. I know who she isn't." I said, "She isn't your wife." He rubbed the back of his neck, something he used to do when he was caught doing something wrong as a boy. "It's complicated, is it?" "You don't understand, Mom. Things with Anna, they haven't been good for a while." I stared at him. "So, this is your solution?" "I deserve to be happy," he said, like it was an excuse. And that was the moment. The exact moment I felt the last thread snap. "Then earn it like a man," I said. "Not by sneaking behind your wife's back." Not by laughing outside hotels while your children wonder where you are. He opened his mouth to reply, then closed it. His expression shifted. Irritation, embarrassment, something else I couldn't place. "You're taking this personally," he said. I blinked. "How else should I take it? You are my son. I raised you to be better than this. I worked double shifts to keep food on the table so you could grow up knowing what honesty looks like. I taught you to show up, to respect the people who love you." He looked away. The woman was shifting uncomfortably. She whispered something and slipped off down the sidewalk. He didn't stop her. "It's not that simple," he said again. I let out a slow breath.
No, David.
It's exactly that simple. You made a choice. You kept making it. And now you live with it.
He looked at me then.
Really looked. You're siding with her. I'm siding with what's right, with your children, with your wife, the woman who stood by you when you couldn't keep a job, who covered for you, who raised those kids practically on her own while you were too tired from work.
You don't know what it's been like. She does.
And she never walked away. And then right there in the cold, something else surfaced. Something I hadn't planned to say, but it clawed its way out anyway. "Do you remember?" I said. "When your father left, he stiffened.
You were 10.
He said he needed to find himself. And you cried in your room for 3 nights straight. You asked me if he didn't love us anymore. I promised you that you'd never be like him, that you'd grow up to be better." He said nothing. And now here we are, the same door, the same betrayal. The only difference is this time I'm not the one being left. Anna is. Your children are. And you're not the boy crying. You're the man causing the pain. He looked away. For a moment, he wasn't angry anymore, just quiet. "You always talk about happiness," I continued. "But what you mean is ease, comfort. You want someone who doesn't challenge you, who doesn't remind you of your failures. Anna stands beside you even when you don't deserve it, and that makes you resent her." There was a long pause.
He didn't speak.
I didn't either. "You always expected I'd back you no matter what. Even when you stopped showing up, even when you raised your voice at your children, even when you stopped calling me unless you needed money. You took and thought it was love. But love doesn't look like that." His eyes dropped to the pavement. "I didn't think you noticed. I noticed everything. I just chose to believe you were better than your worst moments." Then I said, "You're on your own now." His brows furrowed. "What does that mean?" "It means the house. It's no longer in your name. The money I used to send every month, that's going directly to Anna and the kids. You will not leave them empty-handed and expect me to clean it up." His face twisted in disbelief. "You did what?" "I gave them what you were supposed to: security, stability, a home." He stepped forward. "You can't just—" "I can, and I did. I need that money. You know that. My card's already maxed out.
I've got bills."
"Then I suggest you get a job that covers your lifestyle or adjust your lifestyle because I'm not funding this anymore." He stared at me like I'd hit him.
"Why now?"
He asked. "Why are you doing this?" "Because I watched you become someone I don't recognize. Because I spent too many years believing that being a good mother meant always giving, even when it cost me peace, even when it cost others their dignity. But I was wrong." He was quiet. I could see his jaw clenching. "What am I supposed to do now?" he asked. "Figure it out like Anna did. Like I did." I turned then. I didn't wait for a response. I didn't need one. When I got home that evening, the wind had picked up. The first snow had started to fall. I watched it gather slowly on the windowsill. The world outside was going still. Inside, my house was warm, safe, clear. I sat down at the kitchen table and wrote one last check. This one directly to Anna. I included a note. "This is for the children, not him. Never again for him." Then I sat back and listened to the radiator hum. David called that night twice. I didn't answer. He sent a message. "I don't understand why you're doing this." I stared at the screen and thought, "Because you never understood what you had. And now you'll have to learn." I didn't respond. Sometimes silence is the only way to be heard. And finally, I was done being quiet. The silence didn't last long. 2 days after the confrontation outside the hotel, my phone rang just after sunrise. I was trimming the dry ends of the geraniums in my window box, trying to do something with my hands so I wouldn't keep thinking about David's face when I told him the truth. It was him. I let it ring. Then came the messages one after another. Short, clipped, panicked. Why would you do this? Mom, we need to talk. You can't just cut me out. This isn't fair. That word, fair, it stuck in my throat.
Fair.
I wanted to scream. Where was fairness when Anna was scraping together dinner? Because he blew the grocery money on gadgets and clothes. Where was fairness when their daughter asked why Daddy didn't come to her recital and David didn't even remember she had won? I sat on the edge of my bed reading those messages, feeling the familiar tug, the urge to respond, to fix it, to smooth things over. Years of habit of being the glue. But glue doesn't work when one piece refuses to stick. Anna called me later that morning. Her voice was small but steady.
He's been calling all night, she said.
He's yelling about money, about the house, about you. I closed my eyes. Are you okay?
I am now, she said.
And I believed her. David didn't stop at just calling me. He turned to others. He called my sister, furious. He left her a voicemail, his voice shaking, saying she's lost her mind. She's choosing my wife over her own son. He even called my cousin in Chicago, someone he hadn't spoken to in years, trying to make his case. She's cut me off like I'm nothing after everything I've done. Everything he'd done. Like asking me for money to fix a car and spending it on a vacation with that woman. Like standing in my kitchen and lying to my face about where he was that weekend. Even some neighbors whispered. One woman from church came to my door gently saying, "Maybe you should forgive him. He's your child." I just smiled politely and said, "Forgiveness and enabling aren't the same thing." David's anger only grew. He texted Anna, blaming her. "You poisoned her against me." He messaged me again and again.
How could you?
"You're punishing me for being unhappy. You're tearing the family apart." No, he did that all on his own. I didn't reply. The real eruption came when he learned the deed had already been transferred. He showed up at Anna's house, his former home, and started shouting in the yard. The children were inside. I was told by a neighbor who heard everything. He was ranting about his rights, his sacrifices, how he built that life. He shouted, "You're all against me, even my own mother." Anna called the police. Quietly, calmly, he left before they arrived. He called again the next day. This time there was rage in his voice. He said, "You're ruining my life. You don't understand what you're doing. I'm your son. Your only son." I listened to the message once, then deleted it. He didn't stop. He messaged mutual friends asking them to talk to me to convince me I was wrong. One even showed up at my front step with coffee and a smile, trying to coax me out of what she called a regrettable decision. I told her calmly, the only regret I have is not doing it sooner. She didn't stay long after that. And then she said something I'll never forget. She called me after, still shaken. For the first time, I wasn't afraid. I knew you had our backs. I knew we were going to be okay. I swallowed the lump in my throat. You always were. You just needed someone to remind you. That week, the bank froze one of David's cards. He tried to access the joint account Anna had already closed. He came to the house again, banged on the door like it owed him an answer. I didn't let him in. From the upstairs window, I watched him pace the sidewalk, his frustration swelling. And all I could think was, this is the boy who once cried over a broken toy. And this is the man who broke his own family without blinking. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired. He wasn't done. Not by a long shot. A few days later, I received a letter, not handwritten. He hadn't done that since grade school, but typed. Formal, defensive. It was 3 pages of explanations and half-hearted apologies wrapped in excuses. You don't understand the pressure I've been under. Anna doesn't respect me. You chose her over me. The last line, I don't know if I can forgive you. Forgive me. I held that letter in my hands and read it 3 times. Not once did he mention the children. Not once did he admit fault without following it up with blame. That letter was not a bridge. It was a mirror. It showed me everything I needed to see. For so long, I told myself that if I just did a little more, helped a little more, he'd come back to being the man I raised. But the truth is, I had raised him. And still, he chose this. That night, I went through the storage closet and pulled out a box I hadn't touched in years. It held pieces of the past, drawings from the kids, cards from Anna, old receipts, and scribbled notes. At the bottom was a birthday card from David, the last one he wrote before he stopped altogether. It said, "Thanks for always being there." 7 words. Now I wasn't. I sent Anna the deed transfer confirmation. I told her it was final. She thanked me softly with tears in her voice and said she was going to repaint the kitchen. A fresh start, she whispered. And David? He finally stopped calling, but his silence was louder than his words had ever been. My neighbor mentioned he saw him moving boxes into a small apartment on the other side of town. No kids, no decorations, just a mattress and a television. Sometimes justice doesn't roar. Sometimes it walks away. I still think of him, of course. He's my son. That won't change. But now when I think of him, I don't see the man in the hotel. I don't see the angry texts or the cold letters. I see the little boy who asked me once, "Will you always love me?" And I answered, "Yes, and I still do." But love isn't rescue. Love, real love, has boundaries. And this boundary, it was long overdue. Some endings don't come with a final word. They come with silence, the kind that settles in a house like dust. You don't notice it at first until you realize the phone hasn't rung in days. No messages, no shouting, no accusations, just the sound of your own breath and the occasional creak of the floorboards. That was my life in the weeks after David disappeared from view. At first, I kept checking my phone, half expecting another message, another storm. Nothing came. His rage had run its course, and now came the part he never prepared for: being ignored. I wasn't ignoring him to punish him. I was simply done. Done justifying, explaining, rescuing, done answering for choices I didn't make. Anna and the children came over one weekend. They brought paints and brushes and bags of groceries. The kids helped me repaint the hallway, their laughter echoing through rooms that had held too much tension for too long. Anna hugged me as she left. She whispered, "Thank you for saving us." I wanted to say I hadn't saved anyone, that I had only stopped pretending, but I simply nodded and smiled. A week later, I received a small package. No return address, just my name written in David's handwriting. Inside was a framed photo of him as a child, maybe 6 years old, on a beach. He was holding a seashell, smiling wide. Behind him, I stood barefoot in the sand, my hair wild from the wind, one hand raised to block the sun. Taped to the back of the frame was a note. "I don't know how to come back from this, but I remember that day. You told me the ocean would always return what mattered most. I'm still listening." I held that frame for a long time. Not crying, not shaking, just breathing because I knew what he wanted. He wanted forgiveness without apology, healing without accountability. And I wasn't going to give it. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The ocean doesn't return everything. Sometimes it buries things for a reason. People asked me if I missed him. I did, but not the man he became. I missed the son I once knew. The boy who picked wildflowers for my birthday. The teen who stayed up with me after Grandpa passed, making tea and telling me stories just to keep me company. But that boy had choices, too. And somewhere along the line, he made different ones. What hurt the most wasn't just his betrayal. It was how easily he excused it. How quickly he expected me to accept it. That's what people like David count on. Your silence, your fear of confrontation, your hope that they'll change if you just love them harder. But love isn't supposed to hurt every time it shows up. A month passed. Then 2. I started baking again. Simple things: apple pie, cinnamon rolls, banana bread. The smell filled the house and wrapped around me like a promise. Life didn't stop. It never does. Sometimes I found myself standing by the window, looking down the street, wondering if he'd ever drive by. He never did. Anna sent me photos often. The kids at school, at the park, their drawings taped proudly to the fridge. One of them had drawn a picture of me with a crown underneath in crooked handwriting. "Grandma is the queen." I framed it. David's silence stretched longer. Then came the holidays. No card, no call, no email. For the first time in years, I didn't set a place for him. I lit a candle anyway. Not for mourning, but for peace. The kind that comes when you finally stop waiting for someone else to validate your worth. And then I did something I didn't expect for myself. I sent him a letter. Just a few lines, simple, clear, without anger. David, I received your photo. I remember that day, too. I remember who you were. I hope one day you remember who you still can be. But that's not something I can walk you through. That's your journey. Now, if you ever decide to take that step for real, I'll be here, but only if it's real. Not to explain, not to defend, but to listen. I didn't expect a reply. And as of today, none has come. But I wasn't writing to get him back. I was writing to let go of the weight I didn't need to carry anymore. Because the truth is, some stories don't have a clean ending. Some people never come back the way you hoped. And that has to be okay. Because life isn't about who walks away. It's about who stays. And I'm still here, still standing, still loving, but no longer bleeding for it. I won't be afraid to tell the truth anymore, even if it hurts. And if you've ever felt like you don't belong, you're not alone. Sometimes love means standing up. Sometimes love means walking away. And sometimes love sounds a lot like silence. Thank you for listening. If you're still here, maybe it means part of this story was yours, too. Take care of your peace and never apologize for protecting.